Welcome everyone to another episode of Around the Block Talk. Today we have with us Mr. Sudin Baraokar. He is an emerging technology expert, having spent several years in this field advising and leading projects for digital transformation in various organizations. So very happy to have you here with us, Mr. Sudin, and I'll hand it over
Thank you
to you.
for hosting me. Thanks, Prateek.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So today we would like to start our conversation on the topic of blockchain and Web3 and how we've seen in the recent couple of years, this movement has gained pace and everyone is trying to understand what can be done with it and how they can use this technology for their benefit in the organization. So with that, Mr. Sudin, we would love to hear your views on that.
Sure. Blockchain is emerging tech. It's a tech which is and not to be confused with the crypto world and Bitcoin world. So blockchain is much more than that. Blockchain is essentially a secure, decentralized database. However, just as a database has a create, read, update, and delete, blockchain, there is no delete. So it means that once you add the transaction, so we start with a Genesis block, that is your first block of blockchain. There we put in all the rules and the consensus protocols. And then we start adding all the other blocks which have the transactions. So we start from, let's say, Genesis block, that is block 0. Then we keep adding. The point is that once you come to, let's say, the 1000th block, and can somebody tamper with that block? Can somebody delete that block, that 1000th block or the earlier blocks? The answer is no. So what this means is that the immutability of the entire blockchain transaction gets restored. And the biggest benefit of this is especially for banks and financial services, institutions, and even other organizations. The trust as a service gets built up because your transactions, your data, your entire blockchain network can never be manipulated.
Yes, sir, indeed. So, sir, as you worked on these multiple projects leading digital transformation for organizations, so what is the scenario you see today for blockchain adoption, and how are these organizations kind of leading adoption in the scope of blockchain?
So we are using blockchain in State Bank. We did 2 pilots way back in 2017, 2018. One was to transfer money using, at that time we used IBM Hyperledger and the blockchain technology stack. So we transferred money from our State Bank of India Mumbai branch to our State Bank of India Kathmandu Nepal branch, and reverse way from State Bank of India Nepal Kathmandu branch back to our State Bank of India Mumbai branch. And we did this with a fact to start using the blockchain. And we found that doing this really reduced our process time, which used to take about 3 to 5 days, got reduced to about 15 to 20 minutes. And the second part is that we could directly do it between our branch network in India and Nepal. Now, luckily for us, the RBI, the central bank, allows inward rupee remittance from countries like Nepal and Bahrain, as well as outward rupee remittance. So we didn't have to take some specific approval from the regulators, authorities to get this transaction done. Otherwise, we have to take certain regulations, approvals for FERA and FEMA, all those rules regarding foreign exchange. So we got this, and the benefit was that not only we could reduce the time, but we also had a complete audit trace right from the origination of the transaction, payment transaction, to the final stages, to the settlement, that is the money going to the beneficiary account, was completely captured, auditable, and at any given time we could in fact increase the report which was generated of all the transaction details, actually increased our overall GRC, which is our governance, risk, and compliance.
Right, sir. And as you mentioned, the GRC aspect of it, would really like to understand better from you and how the blockchain actually helps in achieving that, and what exactly is a GRC that needs to happen.
So GRC is governance, risk, and compliance, extremely important regulated industries like banking. we have to submit many such compliance reports, audit reports to the regulators like RBI, also to the authorities like the finance ministry. So what happens from a blockchain perspective is that since we can get these records, so for example, let's say we start from Genesis block and we move on to the millionth block, right? Those transactions. And today, if we have to do a paper trail, which will never happen even in 2-3 years, or if we have to use our current audit methods, it is very time consuming. Here, to get the entire report of the million blocks of transaction done on the blockchain network, we can get it in about roughly 15 to 20 minutes. That's it, right? So this really helps our auditable process because audit is very important. We need to understand the origination of transaction, the settlement, who are the parties involved, whether the transaction passed or not, whether the any refund has to be given, or whether there was any problem with the account number or details. So this report is very, very beneficial. This entire audit report is completely processed by the blockchain stack. We are using a lot of fabrics, both especially IBM Hyperledger, and also we are evaluating other fabrics like R3 Corda, which I'm doing now. Of course, I'm no longer in State Bank, but I'm also advising other banks. So we're using a lot of other fabrics. So this kind of audit process is one of the biggest benefit, especially for regulated industries, to get that in near real time, all the data, all the transactions, and then furnish it as a report to our stakeholders and to the regulators.
Right, sir, indeed. And with, as you mentioned, a use case of implementing this on the banks itself, so what kind of transaction and what kind of records are they uploading to blockchain, and what are the possibilities there?
So it is the entire transaction, right from the originator bank details to the beneficiary, then the value of transaction, the IP, that is the trace of the nodes that are used for this transaction, the rules that are validated. For example, we bake in certain rules that, let's say, up to 10,000 rupees requires just a single factor authentication. If it is more than 20,000 rupees, it requires a little more of a multi-factor authentication. So all the security rules, business rules, all the transaction data, all the payment data, the timestamp, as well as the report, meaning that has all the checklist, has it been processed the right way? It should be as per our program and as per our blockchain stack that we use. That is very, very, again, very, very beneficial, because a lot of these transactions at times, even today, when we do these payment transactions, there are a lot of disputes wherein, let's say, if I have transferred money to party B, the party B will still come back to me and say, hey, I've not received the money. Where in blockchain, the node is already registered. So moment the node is registered, if node A gives it to node B, then that receipt of that particular payment transaction is recorded by both the nodes across a distributed ledger, which is completely tamper-proof. So a party B cannot say that, look, I did not receive the money. Because they can see it in their ledger that they have received the money, right? So yes, there is a little disadvantage that we have to maintain multiple nodes and multiple kind of ledgers. So there is a challenge of how much storage and the cost to storage. But if the use cases where along with the payment, we require all this GRC compliance and we require a complete audit, which is very much required, then it is very ideal to use blockchain in such solutions.
Right, sir. So the kind of implementation you're telling us, that is more like a consortium implementation where only probably a B2B kind of transaction and ecosystem has been created. So again, with blockchain, it's not enough that one organization adopts it, and so in order for it to be successful, the entire consortium needs to adopt that. So is that a movement that is happening right now? To what extent has the adoption happened?
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, in 2017, I built up the Bank Chain Alliance. So got SBI and other banks together. I got about 30 banks together. We called them to our technology headquarters in Navi Mumbai, in a place called CBD Belapur, where our global IT center is. We call them for lunch. They like the lunch. We like the lunch. We all, and I just told them two things. Let's shed our ecosystem and let's work in an ecosystem. So we got the 30 banks together. We got 10 technology partners, vendor partners together. We started evaluating all the use cases. We started sharing each other's domain experts. And because at that time, about 3-4 years back, it was very difficult to find the specialists and the domain skill guys from a technology perspective on blockchain. So by doing this, I think this is a very good way where emerging tech like blockchain can be built as an alliance. It can be a private blockchain network. It can be a pure B2B to start with. Nothing is anonymous. Nothing is cryptic or crypto. Nothing is hidden. Every the nodes of the banks, only those which are banks and technology partners will be allowed into those nodes. No other permission will be given. So this is a permissioned private blockchain, and here automatically by the distributed ledger technology, every node, every participating bank which is a node will immediately come to know which transaction has happened, and will immediately automatically the updates will be recorded, and whenever they want a report or an audit, that can be generated instantly, right? The long back, the entire fraud in the country in 2019, and this is public domain knowledge, was a whopping 1,87,000 crore. That is money lost by banks and by customers. That's huge, more than $25 billion. My view, not the bank's view, is that all this money recovered can be given to the people who actually need the money, right? So with this trust as a service, if established, I think can have a lot of benefits. We could see that some years back there was a fraud of a PSU bank, a very large PSU bank, which gave a lot of loans to a diamond merchant who later on became absconding, and that loan turned bad, which was a fraud. Now, if all the banks were on the same network, and this transaction would be known to all the other participating banks, they would have done an extra set of due diligence to take their approval process ahead. As a result, without this blockchain system in place, what happened is this borrower went to the first bank, took a guarantee from them, and went to other 10 banks, even took loans from them, right? Now, I'm not saying that banks cannot lend as a consortium, or a borrower cannot go to multiple banks. But with this, if the blockchain system, if the trust as a service was in place, then all the other nodes would know that this transaction has already taken place. So let us do another check to factor in whether we should approve more loans for this borrower, right? So this way, this is a very good use case of adopting blockchain to reduce the fraud that is happening in the country. And a country like ours, which is a developing country, can ill afford so much of amount of fraud which is even happening even today, right? So these technologies will be very, very beneficial, because not only will the distributed ledger alert and notify all the participating nodes, but you can also take the decision. You can also have this data. Now you're taking the decision based on the data. You're taking the decision based on these transactions which have already been recorded. So this will improve the trust of the system, as well as reduce any fraud that can hamper our entire banking system.
Right, sir, indeed. So essentially, something that we saw a few years back, like a Nirav Modi scam, I think that is something that it can prevent in a sense. Sure.
Absolutely. And what is banking, right? What is trust? I mean, why do we go to big banks like State Bank or ICICI Bank or Bank of Baroda or Bank of America, right? Because we trust them. And they have to keep delivering on this trust, right? They have to make sure that they use emerging technologies. They make sure that they're better equipped. They make sure that the customers are not defrauded. They make sure that fraudsters don't take advantage of the system. So this is where the role of emerging tech like blockchain can be used for these emerging models, emerging use cases, and overall increase the level of trust and confidence across the entire banking ecosystem.
Right, sir, indeed. So what is the state of implementation and usage today? What is the feedback? And is that growing, the use of blockchain in these kind of consortiums?
So I think from the initial success, a lot of our internal solutions, for example, we launched a global startup program for startups. The bank had in when I was head of innovation at that time. So we have to typically sign that NDA agreement, right? That is typically done by sending a document or sending a mailer, and then that the startup will then download that, because we have to sign these NDAs before we have the startups work with us on various pilots and POCs and challenges or hackathons that we conduct. So that process of 5 days, by making it a blockchain smart contract, putting it on the cloud, is just reduced to about less than an hour, right? And the entire process is also automated. So a lot of the simple internal use cases wherein the adoption is within the organization has seen a lot of success. Now we are looking at deployments across organizations, across consortiums, where banks can come, organizations come together. Similarly, just like banking, one of the companies has also built up one of the logistics, very large container shipping and logistics company has also built up a alliance for the trade and shipping, right? So they also have built up a consortium. So similarly, such consortiums, I think, is the way to go forward. And it will take a little time, because try to understand that when banks, we run mission critical systems, right? So we have to test the technology. Now, a lot of the regulators have also introduced sandboxes. So RBI has recently done this, but other regulators like the UK regulator, as well as the Singapore regulator, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and also some of the Dubai and UAE regulators have already started offering these sandboxes to the fintechs or to the startups, so that they can test the solution, get a okay from the banks, get a okay from the approval from the regulator. Because when we established our let me track back as to why this is very important. I benchmarked our core banking system in 2017 at State Bank of India at 24,000 transactions per second, 1.5 billion transactions a day, to cover more than 500 million customers and 700 million accounts. This is the most advanced, scalable core banking system in the world, built in India by Indian technologists. And you can see that even during COVID, and even currently, all the banking transactions have never failed, right? They have always been processed, even in COVID. In fact, I'm very proud to say that the banks were always way ahead of any other industry in going digital. And you can see whether it's mobile banking or internet banking or the UPI payments, you can see that it's completely digital, completely contactless, completely seamless, right? So to get these blockchain technologies certified and audited and make sure that they run as mission critical systems. So nowadays the regulators also offer these sandboxes, wherein the startup and fintech can validate the solution. The bank will then approve, the regulator will then approve, and then they can put it into their normal, production ready mission critical systems, and then go ahead with their various solutions for various use cases. So that will take time. It takes time. Emerging technology always takes time. Look at cloud. It started early 2000, and then as per the Gartner curve, there was a peak, and then there was a decline in the technology. The decline is not in the technology, just the graph. The decline is because cloud is no longer a hype technology. Everybody, the world is using private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud. I must confess, as banks, we used to also flip-flop on this cloud journey. But even now we are going fully cloud. We've got hybrid clouds, private cloud, public cloud, multi-clouds. So you can see that there is a time for deployment. And a lot of this time now is also, earlier we used to not have this sandbox kind of approach. But now with the sandbox approach, the adoption will become more verifiable. The approvals will become more creditable. And these solutions will then find a way into the entire banking ecosystem.
Sure, sir. And as you mentioned, a system that you mentioned with 24,000 transactions per second.
Core banking system, CBS, core banking system. Yeah.
Okay. Is that built on blockchain or
no? A core banking
Not
system. So we run we do digital transformation two ways. We run the bank. That is, we run the mission critical systems like core banking, our payments, our risk, our analytics, our customer, accounts, our CRM. And then we have changed the bank, where then we get these used new technologies, these exponential technologies, these emerging technologies, so that we can then align with our digital transformation programs, put in these new technologies, and make sure that all our emerging use cases, emerging models can be serviced. For example, can we use blockchain for financial inclusion? Can we connect the various government nodes, the various banking nodes, the various insurance company nodes, put them on a system? We already have that system in the form of Jandan accounts, right? So can Jandan accounts also be enabled with smart contracts and with blockchain technology, so that the entire ecosystem will know what is happening? What kind of transfer is happening? Can these Jandan accounts, in fact, that's one of the biggest successful programs that we have launched. There are more than 500 million Jandan accounts or financial inclusion accounts. These are accounts ranging from 0 rupees up to maybe 10,000 rupees. The last I found out is the balance is nearly 1,50,000 crores, right? Now, can these accounts be, over the years, can we make them into a smart contract? Can we then get all the different banks and the different government departments on that blockchain network, so that any slippage, any fraud, and so we can also make sure that the last mile connectivity, of the direct benefit transfer is actually implemented and given forward, right? And there's also an audit report which can be generated instantly, and so the regulators and the authorities will know that yes, financial inclusion is very important. It's very important for people, the needy people, to get money at the right time. So over a period, these are the emerging use cases like financial inclusion, which will also be adopted using blockchain technology.
Right, sir. And as you mentioned, financial inclusion, that's something very repeatedly pointed out, that blockchain and these technology are going to do that. So I would really, you're also coming from a strong banking background. So I would really like to understand from you, what is the issues or what is the problem in the current financial system, or technology wise, what are the issues that these people are not banked, and how can blockchain actually solve that, and how do we include more people in the system through this technology?
So yeah, it is happening. It does take time. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, somehow my video has stopped. Just let me check why it stopped. Okay.
Yeah, it's back.
So we have done a lot of work. There's still work that needs to be done. We have an incredible financial system where people who need money don't get the money, and people who already have enough money get even more money, and some of them are absconding. So we got to fix it. It takes time. It takes time. The Jandan is one of the biggest successes. The entire JAM kind of conversions, which is your Jandan, your Aadhaar, which is your Aadhaar enabled authentication, and your mobile, your smartphone. We have now newer technologies like when we implemented YONO, you only need one. Last I just checked with my team, there are more than 50 million users on YONO, right? So this acceptance of this entire convergence of this technology stack using JAM is further going to advocate this digital literacy, digital banking, and that will also reduce the cost, right? So it will take some time. We are doing it. More needs to be done. Both the regulators and authorities are pushing for this, so that the entire digital framework of the JAM, as well as use of these technologies like blockchain, automation, AI, and cloud, will further help in these financial inclusion programs. Will also plug any fraud or any gaps in the last mile kind of delivery of money or resources to the people. But we are doing it. In fact, like if a customer comes through the YONO application, right? Which is the entire, it's like a super app. It's all the banking services on your smartphone, right? So if you're applying for a home loan, what typically takes us 3 to 4 weeks for you to go to a branch or some agent and then give them the papers, and then they will say yes or no after a month or something like that. Here you do the entire, it's completely automated. You can just show your Aadhaar card, you can just show your PAN card, at the back end you're authenticated, your CIBIL record and all that stuff is verified, and then immediately in a day or two you're given the decision, yes, that we can go ahead with the loan. And then whatever documents you have to do, you have to just upload or scan it and just send it, right? So this is not taking more than 2 to 3 days, and the banks are giving even incentive, like they're giving a 15 to 20 bips incentive on the interest. So for example, if you're paying 7% for a home loan through the normal process, and you save about 20 bips, you're getting this home loan at 6.88% interest. That's over a 15-year period. Typically long, home loans are quite long, gestation loans, right? 15 years, 20 years. So that's a huge cost saving that also you can, when you can, get this benefit. So this digital transformation is happening. A lot of the banks are doing it. A lot of the authorities are also pushing the entire digital transformation agenda. A lot of automation is happening. A lot of technologies like blockchain and AI will further increase the coverage. Very soon we will meet the final. We will, I think, overcome these final challenges of financial inclusion and make sure that people who really need the money will get the money.
Right, sir, indeed. So also, the government is now have announced and working on the CBDC, and we are yet to explore if it will be based on blockchain and how it will work. So what are your views on that, and how do you think it will pan out?
No, I think the newer technologies around blockchain, like central bank digital currency, DAO, which is your decentralized autonomous organizations, NFTs, which is your non-fungible tokens, I think look very promising. I think the most promising looks the CBDC, where if the central bank itself, will go digital and also work with the entire ecosystem, right? That will also, so for example, can the central bank just take inclusion use case and make sure that at least the Jandan part, the financial, the direct benefit transfer, that maybe can be covered by the central bank itself, right? So that will reduce the intermediary time. It will knock off the need for intermediary, or reduce the transmission time, because the central bank can do it instantly, right? So these are technologies which look very promising. However, we must make sure that the cost benefit analysis or the return investment, whether it's the central bank doing it or commercial banks do it, must be in a position that it is economical. Whether are there any alternative ways of doing it can also be considered. But yes, absolutely, I think if something like CBDC comes in, then we can believe, everybody believes in the central bank, everybody believes in fiat currencies. I think that will be a very big support shot to the entire ecosystem.
Indeed, sir. So with CBDC, there are like two sides of argument, which is mostly prevalent. So firstly is definitely the benefit that it brings, and the kind of access the central bank could have over the currency and the control. But the flip side of that control is that central bank has now more power over how the currency is being used, or now who can access it, who cannot access it. So that gives the central government kind of more auditing power or more control over how this is being used. So what are your views on that in terms of the pros and cons, and what do you think about that?
Yes, I mean, central bank, remits are twofold, globally across. One is inflation control, and second is the job employment, right? These are the two remits of almost all the central banks, major central banks, right? Now, when I think if something like UDC can be generated and transmitted faster, or maybe if the cost of money can be controlled, or the cost of whether kind of the very, today we are living in a very high inflation world. right? At the same time, the cost of money is going very high, right? The interest rates are rising, and the inflation is also rising, which is giving to stagflation. So whether a central bank digital currency can help, whether the central bank can also pitch in the, get in the, commercial banks, rope in them, and also make them part of the network, to make sure, because typically a central bank is a reserve bank, right? It's a lender of last resort. You don't expect a central bank to become a commercial bank, right? That may not be, the remit it's under. So whether the CBDC can be broad based, like can we have a corporate, a corporate and a retail CBDC? Can we, take some specific use cases, and maybe just take a financial use case and just make sure that the central bank and the commercial banks can then build up this network around it and transmit money faster or cheaper, or make sure that if an event takes place, then to how to adjust to that event, and how to make sure that money is given at the right time, or nowadays, or money can be withdrawn at the right time, right? From quantitative easing, we are now going to quantitative tightening, which is not a bad thing, because it means that in the future inflation can be controlled. It also means that there's discipline across the central banks to make sure that, just by printing money is nothing short of just making everything speculative, right? So I think there is a lot of scope. I don't think that it should be solely a central bank domain. I think they will have to work with the commercial banks, work with financial services companies, work with the entire ecosystem, and then take it across. It can be, as I said, taken across as a corporate CBDC or as a retail CBDC. And then you can take one or two very important use cases where, like as you rightly mentioned, that there's still more work that needs to be done. Example, across financial inclusion. So that can be, can that be a first use case, to be taken up and then adopted. So I think that's the way it can be deployed.
Indeed. And sir, these digital transformations that are taking place, particularly in the banking system, in the finance domain, what does it mean for a country like India, where there's such a large population and we have a very growing middle class, educated people? That so, what does it mean for the country like us, and what kind of potential does these technologies have for us?
No, we have seen that because of the digital transformation, we have been able to, address a very, mass, numbers of customers. We are able to do faster. It has improved our overall, going digital has improved overall our governance, risk, and compliance, because we can instantly see all our transactions through internet banking, through mobile banking, and instantly generate the reports and do the analytics, right? And reduce the fraud. And thirdly, that is what the world wants. Everything is becoming digital, contactless, and seamless. And just like, you have these cars which are going to go autonomic, right? And yeah, there have been a few crashes, but ultimately these autonomic cars will come. The same way, even banks will go autonomic, right? And if you do that, like for example, typical legacy 50 to 60%, whereas fintechs or pure digital banks are at 15 to 20% operating costs. So all that money that is saved can be then further used for all these financial inclusion schemes and direct benefit transfers and loans and financial assistance to the people who need it. So it's only a matter of time. I think whatever I have implemented in digital transformation projects way back in IBM in the US, and as well as with Barclays and SBI in India, have been immensely successful. We have been able to also achieve that success and showcase it. For example, our, the Mudra loans which we give to MSMEs is a massive success, right? These are loans from 50,000 rupees to maybe up to 10 lakh rupees without any guarantee. And these are all based on your, on your smartphone. In the back end, your Aadhaar is verified and your approval is given instantly, right? So I think going digital is the only solution. From a ecosystem like in India, we have been for long the IT services capital of the world. Now we can become the innovation and transformation capital of the world. right? We can be the leaders in digital transformation. We can be the leaders in technologies like blockchain, AI, low code, no code, automation, and all these technologies. And that's the future. That's what the world wants. And the question is that, is this rocket science? Is this going to happen? I mean, look at the success with the cab aggregators like Ola and Uber, right? Those chauffeurs and drivers now know how to use a smartphone. They know what is GPS. They know how to KYC and onboard themselves. They know how to use a smart routing to save the traffic time, right? They know customer service, right? They know digital payments, right? They can use. So they're able to. Who taught them? Did banks teach them, or did industry teach them, or did academia teach them, or did I teach them, or did government teach them? No, they did it by themselves, right? And that same person can now earn 4 to 5 times more than what he was earning, and that asset is also being used 24/7, right? So if you think that this digital transformation is just for a certain section of people, I think we have to go beyond that misconception. I think it's been very successful at a mass adoption, across a wide deployment, across just like financial inclusion, and the success is already there. If the common man can upgrade, do it by themselves, and succeed at this, I'm sure the entire country can do it and succeed.
Right, sir, indeed. So, coming particularly to the use case of blockchain,
Yeah.
what kind of regulations are coming from the government, and how much of a support the government is willing to give to for the adoption of this technology, and so what are your views on that topic?
No, I think the regulators and authorities are very, very, supportive of blockchain technologies, especially in terms of smart contracts, in terms of, in terms of bank-to-bank payments, in terms of maybe ID verification, in terms of audit, in terms of improving the overall governance, risk, and compliance. And I think, things like smart contract, right from this has also paved the way for newer emerging models like leg tech, legal tech, rec tech, regulatory tech, soup tech, supervisory tech. So all these new models will be, the prime cases for adoption, and it will save a lot of time. It will build up the trust as a service. It will even make the regulators more comfortable that they are able to take action and also make sure that the system is working and is compliant, and whatever, if an event happens, they are able to immediately react to that event and serve the citizens and the nation.
Right, sir. And so one great success for this digital transformation, I would say, could be the UPI transformation that we've seen, and
Yeah.
the kind of adoption that happened is quite amazing. And so, what are your views on that? And do you think something like a UPI can be built on blockchain in the future, or something similar can be done on blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, things like UPI and why banks have succeeded. Why banking is today at the peak of tech stack success and using emerging tech is because we have always promoted open banking, open APIs, right? Better collaboration between all the banks, and just like and in fact, UPI was promoted, and the banks were also, State Bank and RBI itself have been the foundation members of UPI. So this I think move towards, I see UPI as a perfect fit for open banking and open APIs, and this can be translated across with blockchain as a service or trust as a service, and use of blockchain to converge with open banking and open API models. And this, along with our digital transformation projects, I think will be the right recipe for huge success in the future.
Sure, sir. And so, with that, thank you very much for appearing on that show. And it was indeed a very informative and very
Thanks,
insightful session.
Prateek, for hosting me, and look forward to any future such collaborations or future such engagements. Wish you all the very best with all the initiatives you all are doing. and happy to be part of your ecosystem.